We are live.
Hello, Grace.
Hi there. So good to see you, my friend.
So good to see you too. I'm just going to say a couple of words in French. Donc, pour ceux d'entre vous qui s'intéressent à cette retraite, sachez qu'elle aura lieu en anglais. Et ceci dit, on va en parler aujourd'hui euh, en anglais et je peux traduire certaines choses si ça vous intéresse. Donc, voici mon amie Grace Bell. So, Grace, do you remember 2 years ago? We got in touch with each other. We were all set to welcome you to give your retreat in France, your
Yes.
eating peace retreat. And then, of course, the health crisis prevented this from happening.
Yeah.
As soon as it looked a little bit more hopeful, you got in touch with me, and we're going to do it in June. The dates are 19th to the 26th of June, I think. A whole
Yes.
week spent with you.
I'm so looking forward to it. Beautiful. Yeah.
And is it your first time coming to France to give an event?
It is not. I was there when I was 16 and have been there when I was a young child before that with my family. 16 by myself for a whole summer in Pau.
Right.
And it does not mean I speak French because there was a lot of learning during that time, but unfortunately I didn't get to visit much after that. But I've been to Paris, and it's been a long time since I've spent more significant time, like sort of coming outside of Paris. I mean, this will be a lovely adventure. Yeah,
Right.
I'm really
And
looking forward to it.
and this time you're coming in kind of on a professional basis, so
This
to
is true.
speak, to
Yes.
give a 1 week retreat.
Yes.
So have you done those retreats before?
Yes, many times, but in Seattle, where I live mostly. And I've done two different retreats, one in California by invitation and one in England. Um, and so it's been, a long time. I don't know, I want to say maybe it's been 4 years ago from the last time being invited outside of my
Right.
place in Seattle. But I've always did right up until um, it might have been, I can't remember if it was January when everything was sort of happening, like is there a crisis or whatever, or the previous one. I would customarily do this retreat every single year in January locally, like at a retreat house near my home for a
Right.
whole week. So
Wow.
yeah, very powerful. Everybody kind of living together, being close by and local. And there's something
Mm.
about the in-person process, although I've done this retreat online during this
Yeah.
period in the last couple of years. And it still had some very meaningful experience, that people could do. It's not quite the same, of course. Everyone knows about all this by this point,
Yeah, of
in
course.
person versus online.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be able to offer both. So
Yes.
your retreat is called Eating Peace. Where does it come from?
Yes, somehow that organically came out of a person, like really, in a way, looking and seeing the eating wars that happen. All the thinking that goes on. Should I eat that? Does that give you cancer? Will that make you a bad person if you eat it? Why do I eat this thing? A lot of it when I say that I shouldn't, or I know, no, I shouldn't, says the mind. Or I'm upset because I weigh too much, and everything all in between, from really great despair about eating and having a body and the state of the body and the weight of the body. It just all looked like total disruption, like war. So it's like, okay, let's open up to accessing eating peace. Could it be here? What happened where I feel like it's missing? What happened? This was my experience.
So tell us, what led
Just,
you to give those retreats?
yeah.
Was it something that you
Oh,
experienced?
yeah. So interesting. Yes, very much. So, And really, my experience was quite extreme. And but people come to do eating peace all the time. It doesn't need to be extreme. They don't need to even say, "Oh, this qualifies as an eating disorder." I like to say kind of thinking disorder, feeling disorder, or thoughts about feelings disorder. But it really began for me like going on a diet with my mother at age 14, and sort of a bonding thing happening around that, and this ever-present desire to be thin and as, like having the most perfect body possible, kind of health, but image and appearance and just appearing a certain way and what it might mean if you don't have that, and like all mixed up with even feeling shameful, like almost dramatic, like what is going on here? And feeling that increasingly during my high school years. And then when I was leaving off to go to college and leave home at age 18, um, I found myself having my first full-blown binge. Like literally the packing was happening. There was a celebration to send off the daughter to college, and isn't this amazing, kind of a celebratory event. And I just couldn't stop eating. And I just stuffed and stuffed and stuffed myself. And I was like, what is going on? I didn't even have any consciousness that, like, this is pretty huge transition. I'm about to leave home. And looking back, I see all the unconscious things that were going on there and how frightened I was about everything that was just so disturbed about what was. I didn't even know if I wanted to go to college, and I haven't bothered to ask me if I wanted to go to college. It was just like, this is what we do in this family. You do this. And following that big eating seconds and thirds of the meal, and then kind of pretending and making my way out of the gathering at some point, that looked sort of socially acceptable, like heightened, like lots of thoughts about all that. I went and said, I'm going to make myself throw up. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make myself. I know it happens. I've read about it in books, like if you drink the poison water, you can make yourself throw up and live, and survive. And it was so difficult, but I did it. And that just started this process of when that appeared again, which was sometime, weeks later, there in the, maybe not immediately, like hear this experience again of like an overwhelming urge to just eat everything in sight, kind of shamefully and secretively. And then I'm just going to force myself to vomit. And terrible, terrible suffering in that. It lasted over 12 years. And I dropped out of college, actually, in that first year because of this experience, because I couldn't really think about what I was learning. It's like everything became about how to stop this from happening. So frightened by the power of the craving and just the extremes of it. And I just did not know that it was about my feelings and internal way that I was seeing the world. I just didn't even know. I just thought it was something wrong with me. There was something missing, or something went wrong, And so I was trying to control my thoughts and my mind all the time, and then control food, lots of trying to control food in all the various ways. And always interested in the mind and therapeutic healing, went to therapy. My parents were like, well, why is she dropping out of college? And then it was revealed, I'm having this horrible obsessive experience with food and eating. And they found me a therapist. I didn't even know the word bulimia. It wasn't out there. This was the 1980s. Isn't that something? And I think I came across a book or something that did talk about anorexia, because some people had been studying that a bit. And I definitely could find how I could access that part, the part that would flip to keep it all out, shut it all away, get it away from me, just to kind of like the Beauty and the Beast. It felt like I was the Beauty and the Beast, like that extreme kind of sensibility with it all. And during that whole long, many years, it felt like of suffering around eating. I also had a 2-year period of massive control and getting very, very thin and basically being kind of borderline anorexic. And people would wonder, like, are you okay? Not to the point of being hospitalized, but I did go into a hospital treatment program, and I still suffered following that. So they were doing the best they could, but it was very, very
What was
hard.
it like inside? What was happening in the box?
Yeah, I know, I love that, in the box, the
Mm.
mind box. Wow, there was so much that got to be centered around, there is something wrong with me. There is something wrong here, but I didn't even, and it's got to be like I could feel the lack of control about the world. There's some wisdom in that. I sometimes think people always want to do the work on themselves, and I often think, oh, it's because maybe, they sort of sense I can't really control other people. I can't control the world, but if I work on myself, I'll get it together. And it was kind of like that. It was before I even knew about the work, but everything was about this terrible compulsion, or just that I wasn't thinking and feeling the right way. I just thought most of what I was thinking and feeling became to be wrong. It just like this funnel. Even when I was really happy, brief, it started to be brief. It was like a dark cloud always, and lots of anxious thinking. Even if it wasn't about food or eating, it was like, don't do anything wrong. Don't show people that you're, bad. It was just such a funny to have that be so, it's like this worm got in my head.
So
And it
were
was,
you able to hide your behavior from your parents and your friends, or?
yes, I think many people did not know, especially because at the time, it wasn't I think people would know more now. They might recognize or sense something around that. They could definitely see it when it was happening on the body. Like when I got very, very, very thin, I got all kinds of compliments initially. So many compliments. And then I was
It's
almost angry.
Yeah, it's another addiction then, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was just like, oh, I must be doing the right thing. And this is, I mean, but I felt like this resentment too, because I was like, the suffering inside around that. Like, I didn't want to be praised for how I looked. And I didn't realize how much I also believed that how I'm appearing in the world is exceptionally important. I don't care what's going on the inside. It was like just dismissing everything that was happening inside.
Yeah, love
Open.
me for my looks.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I never feel right, huh?
Yeah. So much. Yes. Just,
And when people do, we're angry with them. How
yes.
dare you love me for my looks and not from who
Yes.
I am?
Yes. Totally. I mean, right. I want to be appreciated for what's on the inside. I want you to know me. But I
Yeah.
wasn't letting anyone know me, because I
Mhm.
didn't know me or love me or like open up to whatever was happening in here.
Mm.
And with therapy, different pieces of therapy, like whatever the best that society could offer, what was in the environment where I was, and the support of my parents, incredibly supportive people. I don't think you have to have like some sort of terrible background, although some people do who come to eating peace. I mean, as the world, happens in the world and life, but um, very supportive, trying to help and offer, support. Um, there was a couple different things that were really, really useful along the way. Group, like being in a group and having to actually be honest, and doing family therapy. just a few sessions.
Mhm.
Very, very powerful shifts. And, I felt like that, especially with my focus to really heal and understand what this was. And I must have seen 25 therapists. I added them all up once, but then I
Yeah.
found the one that was really, you know, um, there was a connection there, and she led groups, and they weren't for anyone with eating disorders, which was perfect because I wasn't singled out as this is a special. Everybody had their things that they were looking at, and I felt much more connected to this is not so abnormal. It shows up in this particular unique way that it only shows up for some, but really it's about feelings and your perception and interpretation of life
Yeah.
happens to be showing up in this particular way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when I bumped into the work, I went
Yeah.
to the
And how
school.
did that happen? How did the work enter your life?
Yes, I'd say that,
Work of Byron Katie, yeah? That's
I
what we
have
call
incredible gratitude for this eating trouble because the eating wars of my life, I have gratitude because it opened me up to a whole new world. Like nothing matters except clarity and peace in my mind. You must have that, or life is a big false something. Or I mean, it just doesn't work. It's just not working. And so it just put me on a path of like great interest in the mind. And of course, and then I went to graduate school in applied behavioral science. And I was looking at eating and addiction a lot, all kinds of addiction. They all seem to have the same, like all roads lead to the same place. It just
Yeah.
shows up like alcohol, and it shows up like drugs, or it shows up like smoking, which I also smoked. And it, so that was very beautiful. And that somewhere along the way, it was like when I was in graduate school in the late 90s is when I saw Loving What Is in the bookstore.
Yeah,
So,
that's Byron Katie's main book,
yes,
Loving What Is, Aimer ce qui est in French. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And I just read it cover to cover, and I was like, oh, she's talking about you can question all your stuff, everything, like everything. That's amazing. And I just felt like this, I've got to go. I'm reading about it, but I don't quite get it completely. I've got to go. She offers this 9-day school. I've got to go. And the one other thing I'll say about that is when I was there, so that was kind of intense, more extreme eating behaviors, kind of wound down, but I still had a lot of obsessive thoughts like, oh, but I really need to be thin, but I really need to worry about this, but I really need to, be careful. And I know my mom got breast cancer, and I need to make sure I don't get cancer. And, you just like, that was still there. It just wasn't so intense. I kind of think of it as more like, I don't know, somewhere in between on the bell curve. It's more in the middle, like more relatable to other people. Like it's not such extremes. And right there. And that was still kind of running, in my life. And I would look and believe it. I'd believe it, follow it, and trying to do a good job with all of this, and then I went to the school, and you really look, and I felt like, oh, I mean, I really had this sensation with the body, because you get to do the work on the body, and then looking at my own history of eating and food, I went, oh, I mean, I was just like jaw dropped. Oh, I was thinking there was a problem. I was, it was just like this. I mean, it was like all this blocks of cement just came off. It's almost as if they had been chipped down, and maybe you could see the shape of me somewhere in there, but it wasn't quite, you couldn't see what was there yet. And it all just kind of went crack, 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 and it all fell off. And I just was like, oh, I mean, really, just amazing. Like I see what my eating was trying to express.
Right. And
Yeah.
did that have an influence on your eating
Yeah.
disorder? On your yes?
Gone. And
Gone.
all the thinking. So it had probably been about 10 years at that point that I did not have any, like, there was no heavy binge eating followed by vomiting or trying to over exercise to get rid of whatever I ate the day before there. That kind of wasn't happening anymore, but I still was always worried, like I said, about like, wow, maybe I ate too much. Maybe I should quit eating that particular kind of food. And I know what we're going to do. We're going to just, or something with around food. There would always be like corrections and
Yeah.
constant.
Making a plan and
Totally. Yeah. I mean, just, no, I don't want to make a plan. I'm going to do it like this. And then, it'd just be like flip flopping. And um, so that was kind of always happening. And I was also still always concerned about, like, I could be thinner, but I don't want to go back there where I was before. But wouldn't it be nice to be thinner? It would just constantly, like this thing happening, is my body's not quite right. So that was still alive. And I just felt like it just dissolved at that school. It just completely dissolved. The thinking just, I just saw how it could not be the truth. And to look at the other things that I also thought had so much concern about, relating relationships and the state of the world and what life means and like what that means for me over here and other. I just started doing the work because, you're invited to do the work on all these different topics.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So I was just
So it
like,
changed your mind and it changed your life, did it?
that's totally changed my life. Yeah. What is amazing, that very first school, the day that I came home from that school, my husband, I had two small children, and my husband, my first husband, shared with me when I was saying, I don't even know if I can tell you. I felt very internal with it, but like, that was just amazing, amazing, amazing. It's the first time I'd ever been gone from my kids more than a day. And it was 9 whole days. And at the end of a kind of a conversation, I just felt like I was floating on air, like, oh my, I just, with all that insight, kind of recognition, just something kind of felt ecstatic a little bit ungrounded, But then my husband said, well, maybe, I don't know if there's ever a good time to tell you, but this might be the time to tell you I don't want to be married anymore. And it was just a total shock. So, boom, go,
What
the work.
That's your school.
I mean, it was just like all, oh, your life is changing and here we go. And my life, just what it looked like on the outside. So the inside had a gigantic shift, and what it looked like on the outside was a lot of sorting out and like wildness, it felt, for a while. And then it kind of settled into something. But yeah, yeah. So that was amazing.
And then you started sharing what you discovered with others.
Yes, yes.
So how long have you been offering events around eating?
That is a great question, because at first I did not. I was like, I don't ever want to talk about food again. Yeah. It is not necessary anymore to talk about food. And, my work was on relationships and divorce and why somebody wants to leave me and abandonment and money and how I'm going to do this and getting a job. It was just all kinds of things that came to light. And so that's the way it happened. And then there was the work seemed to begin to happen. And then, oh, it's going in this direction with my offering in the world and doing this work. And it was a while. It was years. It was years before people would say, because I would share from time to time the extremes of this eating.
Mhm.
Say, well, how do you think the work applies to that? Or what's happened? And I realized the work completely applies to that for me. You know, like seeing the way I was perceiving the world and meeting the world and my thoughts about it, what I believed at the time would result in this incredible off-balance eating, and thinking. The very extreme starvation and stuffing, and just back and forth um, and all that heavy thinking about it. So I started kind of like, yeah, okay, it has everything to do with that. And so it was very funny because I decided to offer like a 3-day workshop around eating, and 3 people enrolled. And I had done other things where more people, and I could feel I was like, I don't know if this is going to go well. I don't know if I can do this. I feel really scared. I mean, all this fear, whereas the other things felt more, I don't know, like I just know to do the work. You fill out a judge your neighbor. And it's funny when you're doing it on a compulsive experience, because there's, you can look at the food or how you're doing it, and then also what's behind it kind of playing into that. And anyway, there's 3 people, and I almost was going to cancel. And then somebody was coming from like a 3-hour drive and had a hotel reservation nearby. It was just in my living room. And we had one more, we had one of the people was on video, which I had never done before. And we had to figure out how to do it because there wasn't Zoom at the time, but she wanted to participate from Colorado. So we had like a little circle with me and 2 other people, and then this person from Colorado. It was amazing. And I just realized there was something there that could be offered, despite all my fear and tentativeness and not being completely sure. There was learning by offering it. And so then, okay, let's do it again. Somebody asked again, I knew that you did that weekend. Can you do another weekend? And it was just like 3 days. And then it was 4 days. And then it was 5 days. And then it was a week.
Right.
Like, this needs to be a week. And we eat together. And I never ate with everybody. At the first, it was like, you go off and have a lunch break, like most retreats. Mm-hmm. You go off and this is the break. I'm like, no, eating is part of this. So eating is part of the sessions. And you still get a break separate, like after we've eaten, but we eat together.
Right.
Yeah. And it's really a beautiful experience. Lots of thinking comes alive for people, like right at the table when it's really right there with the food. All kinds of thoughts.
So do you teach people how to eat more healthily, eat better?
I really allow people to find the wisdom people have within about what works for their body is important, so they don't hold that thing of like, I have no idea what to do, even if they are saying that, and I get it. I don't know how to eat. I don't know how to eat. But there's some wisdom, that's an intelligence of life that has, where they do know how to eat. They know more than they think they know. And
that's what you tap into.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And they can find, it doesn't mean not having sort of a clarity around what works and what doesn't. And we do a lot of inquiry, right, with the meal. And we stay, it's
So the work
very,
of Byron Katie is very central to the retreat. And do you use other tools as well? Okay. Maybe we get to explore all of this.
Yes. Yes.
Would you like to do? I can see that there's so much to say, and I'm thinking, would you be open and willing to do this again and explore more aspects of this retreat and of disorders and so on?
Oh, of course. Okay. I sure would. I remember you had, you see if there's any little things that you might want to ask, but remember that one thing you were asking me, Margot, before we recorded was if it's only for people with more extreme, and absolutely not. People feel like those eating wars, those battles within, even about losing 10 pounds or, eating the extra cookie or something, so it's, this can really apply to anything. I love that the work is about any place that you find something stressful, basically,
Right.
rising.
So even somebody who's just got some food fads, or nobody should ever eat this, or everybody should eat that, that's good for you, that's not good for you, don't eat this when you eat that, they're not compatible, and you get to question all of
Yeah.
this. Because I guess a lot of people who are in that situation don't realize there's no peace in that. They think it's the right way to think that,
Yeah.
well, this type of bad for you. Sugar is bad. You should never
Yes.
eat sugar. And
Yes.
and goji berries are wonderful. You should eat lots of goji berries. And we
Right.
don't actually realize how obsessional that can be. And,
Yeah, that's true. Like you can get
and
kind of,
how much guilt we can inflict on ourselves when we don't do the right thing.
yes, yes. Like,
Yeah.
oh gosh, I've got this, yeah, I just don't do it right. And, kind of, just like that sort of, exactly. I feel kind of guilty about that. I know it would be better. I know I should do it better. That just,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't feel like heavy, they can have a heavy sort of sensation within. Yeah.
So once you've questioned all your thoughts about what's, good food, bad food, and so on and so forth, does that mean that you get to eat everything? You become completely unruly?
I love that you asked that, because sometimes that's what people think, like, "Oh
Yeah.
my
It's
god,
like,
if I don't
I have all
question that
my
that's."
rules.
Yeah. I found almost, it's very odd, kind of paradoxical, but it feels like the opposite. Like, if I really don't see that thing as evil, bad, preventing health, gonna lead me to early death or whatever, um, it just allowing it to be there. I mean, there's some interesting, sort of processes with it that have seen in my own mind, but I can kind of let it go as a demand. It's okay if something shows up every so often, but I just notice, I probably eat the way I always thought I should eat, which is very interesting.
Without the having to beat you up about it.
It's just the way it's turned out, and it wasn't nonstop like that. It's sort of like I have had different periods that I love to share off and on and with people, like, you know, making sure I have something that I think is the wrong food every single day, and really enjoy it and be in touch with it and see if I like it, like, a candy or something. Um, and so I've sort of had different phases of life opening that way. And
Right.
it, and it's that it has come to, that it just feels very simple, and there's no need to, um, I don't know, sort of question much what's going on.
So what I hear is that awareness or consciousness takes the place of control.
Nicely said. Yes.
Yeah. And
It's
comes
like
and replaces wisdom comes to replace control and obsession. Is that would that
yes. Yes.
yeah.
It's like the way we don't worry about um, how I'm going to breathe in the next breath. It just
Mhm.
happens. Or like if I'm thirsty, I mean, even water can sometimes be a thing that people start to think, oh, I should do this and shouldn't do that and whatever. But usually if we're thirsty, just there's a movement towards water. And
Right.
it's kind of like there isn't like, I don't know if I should get it yet. I don't know, maybe I know. Like, it's like there's just none of that's happening. And so that freedom can begin to happen. It's like where the mind becomes much quieter, or even if it's there, it's just a mind talking. It's
Yeah.
not, you don't have to believe it or care about what it's saying, really. In fact, who we are is the one who doesn't care about what it's saying anyway.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's a little bit like when I'm cold, I naturally put on a jacket, and when I'm too hot, I naturally uh,
Yes.
take it off. I don't need to obsess about being hot or being cold in order to do that. It's a natural
Very
movement.
nice. Nice way to put it. Yes. Yes. You know, and if you need to go to the bathroom, you
Yeah,
actually find, you know, where the bathroom is and where is your bathroom, and you go, you know.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's it, and then you move on to something else.
Yes. Exactly. Then you're done and move on.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing that part of your life that sounded so painful and
Ah,
such a dead end for a long time.
yes. Yeah.
And I look forward to our next meeting. And I'd like to say, maybe to the people who are listening to us, you know, please, if you're interested in finding out more about this, send us your questions and we'll certainly answer
Yeah.
them next time we meet.
We'll have a Q&A. Yes, we will. And I'll be sure to get links so that people can read more about the retreat below this video, where this video shows up.
Yeah, great.
Thank
So
you, my
thank you, Grace. And thank you for all those, that wonderful, wonderful opening into something different, something
uh,
unsuspected.
yeah, you are so welcome. I can't wait to come see you in person. It's going to be lovely.
It's going to be wonderful. Bye for now.